All right, so in this video, we're going to be looking at section 1.4. This is continuing the videos on chapter 1. Okay. All right, so here you're going to learn some key math skills, which would be important and will carry you through into the other chapters. Okay. The first is interpreting graphs. All right, so this particular plot here is called a straight line plot, or a straight line graph. And here what is being plotted is volume on the y-axis in liters, and temperature on the x-axis in degrees centigrade. All right, so the labels, these are called as legends or labels, the axis labels, and the heading for this graph, all right, is a volume of a balloon versus temperature. All right, so it's showing you the relationship between volume and temperature, okay, mainly of the gas that is occupying the balloon. Okay, so you can see from this straight line graph is that the temperature is gradually increasing, and so is the volume. All right, so that's a direct relationship. Both are increasing, which is why the plot is a straight line. And this is also sometimes referred to as the best fit line. All right, all of the data points may or may not fall on the line. In this case they are. So you're trying to draw a line that is as close as possible to the data points. Okay, now the other piece of information that you can get from this graph is, for example, if you look at the scale of the graph, all right, so it's going from 0 to 100 on the x-axis, all right, on the temperature scale. But if you look at the main the main points here, the scale points are going from 0 to 20. So it's in 20-degree centigrade increments. All right. Now what happens if you're trying to determine an in-between a point? All right, so for example, you want to know what the corresponding value is around here. All right, so you can take the space and divide it up. All right, so for example, I would take the space between 20 and 40 and divide it further. All right, so in the middle I would say it's 30. All right, between the 30 and 20 there would be another point here, say 25, and then between 30 and 40 would be 35. All right, so since this seems like this is kind of in the middle between 40 and 60, this should be around 50 degrees centigrade. So you want to know what the corresponding volume is at 50 degrees centigrade. All right, so what you'll do is draw a line, a perpendicular line to the y-axis, which is the volume, and then make sure it joins up with the plot line. All right, okay, so then from there draw another perpendicular or rather a line that is parallel to the x-axis that will cut the y-axis, and that will give you the corresponding volume. All right, so it seems like, again, if you look at the scale of the y-axis, it's going from 22 to 30 liters. All right, again, this if you look at the major markings, you're going from 22 to 24. All right, so what happens to something in the middle? All right, so this would be 25, and between 25 and 26 it might be 25.5. all right, you can also take up the space and then divide it up into 10 equal small segments. All right, so if this is 27, all right, then it's kind of in between 26 and 27. So I would say it's 26.5 liters. So at 50 degrees centigrade, it's approximately about 26.5 liters for the volume of the balloon, according to this graph. Okay, so these are some ways that you can interpret a graph, a straight line graph. Okay. Okay, now how do you identify the place values of numbers? Okay, suppose you have a number of 2518, no digits after the decimal point. All right, so the 8 falls in the 1 place. This 1 is in the tenths place, the 5 is in the hundredths place, and the 2 is in the thousandths place. All right, so that's how you would identify the place value of a number much greater than 1, and then also it doesn't have any digits after the decimal point. Suppose there is a number which does have digits after the decimal point. All right, so this is again 1. Okay, the position right before the decimal point is in the ones place, and this is in the tenths place. All right, it's 1/10. All right, so it's the tenths place, hundredths, and then the thousandths place. All right, so the 7 is in the thousandths place. So that's how you identify place values. And so whenever they tell you that they want an answer recorded to the ones place, all right, so then you know how to round off your answer. For example, if you were going to round off this answer to the ones place, the rule for rounding is that if this number was 5 or greater, then you'll have to add 1 to the retained digit. All right, since this number is less than 5, so then the retained digit in the ones place is going to be recorded as 6. So a positive number has a positive sign. It's greater than 0. A negative number is less than 0 with a negative sign. So when you're doing math with positive, negative numbers, so if you're doing a multiplication, 2 times 3, you don't even have to write positive 6. Okay, you can simply write it as 6. It's understood there is a positive sign. Suppose you're multiplying a negative 2 and a negative 3, then the answer, when you're multiplying, the two negatives become positive, and so again the answer is a positive 6. Okay, if you're dividing 6 by 2, the answer is 6 by 3, the answer is 2. But if you're dividing negative 6 by negative 3, the answer is again 2, because the two negatives, when you're dividing, the answer becomes positive. Okay, but if you're multiplying a negative and a positive number, then the answer is negative. Okay, so in all of these cases where you're multiplying and one of the digits is negative, then the answer is also negative. Even when you're dividing, it doesn't matter whether the numerator is negative or the denominator is negative, the answer will also be negative. So when you add up the two positive numbers, of course the answer is positive. And when you add up two negative numbers, then the answer is negative. All right, so that's a key difference between the multiplication. When you are multiplying two negatives, the resultant answer is positive. However, when you're adding them, if each of those numbers, and that's why it's good to have them in parentheses, if each of those numbers are negative that you're adding up, then the result is also negative. All right, suppose you are having a number that is negative, which is larger than the other number that you're adding to, then the result is going to be negative. Now you see here, when you are subtracting something, and that number is positive, however you're subtracting, that means you are subtracting 12 minus 5. Okay, again, when you have the parenthesis, it kind of becomes clear. Okay, suppose the number within the parenthesis was a negative. That means the two negatives become positive, and therefore you're not doing a subtraction but an addition. Again, if the 12 is negative, then it's like you're adding plus 5 to negative 12, and so the resultant answer is negative. Okay, now in this case both become negative, and you are adding two negative numbers, so you get negative 17. Okay, on your calculator, at the right side you will see the, and depends upon your on your model. If you're not sure how to work your calculator, a good place is to check out a YouTube video. Somebody would have made a video on that particular model. All right, so just type in your model, your model the ID on in YouTube, and then you will or your model make, rather, model number, model make, and they'll there should be a YouTube video. Now the other way is, of course, to look at the inside cover of your calculator. Look inside that, you'll have some shortcut keys that also tell you how to work your calculator, in case you've thrown away the booklet that comes along with the calculator. All right, but again, YouTube or going on the internet is a quick way to determine how to work your calculator. Okay, so when you're doing addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, how do you use your calculator? So 15 minus 8 plus 2, you're using a function key to punch in the negative, and then again the addition function key. All right, if you are doing 4 plus negative 10 minus 5, then what you need to do is you are punching in your function key here, all right, between 4 and 10, but then you're using your plus minus key to convert your 10 to a negative number. All right, and then your subtraction key, and then 5, and then you'll get the correct number. All right, so anytime you're going to be converting a positive number to a negative, use this plus minus function. Okay, all right, when you're doing percentages, it's part divided by total times 100. All right, so there was a total of 32 books. 8 out of those books were chemistry books, so 8 divided by 32 times 100, that means 25% of the total is chemistry. All right, if you're given a percentage, the way to interpret that is 5% of a certain number of balls were red. That means out of 100, 5 of them are red. That's how you interpret percentages. Solving for x. Okay, now here what you would do is you can take the 8, all right, and bring it onto the other side, and it becomes negative. All right, so when you move a number that is positive from the left side onto the right side, it becomes negative. All right, so when you do that, 14 minus 8 is 6. Okay, so you will rearrange this equation where 2x is equal to 6, and then you'll solve for x, dividing both sides by 2. Okay, the 2's will cancel and x will work out to be 3. Now if you want to verify that x is actually 3, then plug it in here into the equation. All right, so 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 8 is 14. Therefore x is 3. Okay, all right, I will have to stop here and continue the rest in the next video.